Before we leave that chapter 1 self-test idea, I just wanted to also point out that in the back of the book, starts on 552 for this edition, there's answers to the self-tests. The self-tests are not long enough to give you a lot of practice to get fluency, but they will help you check to see if you know what the meanings and the way things work are, and then we can look at other exercises to give you enough repetition to get good at that. Okay, so let's talk about the next section. It dives into the major scale, and what we're going to do is we're going to not worry about the major scale or minor scales until next week. There's a ton of them, and I want to skip ahead and work on triads next. But before we do that, though, they've embedded notation in sharps and flats, what they do right here. And so we're going to just talk about this. It's necessary so you can spell triads and scales, although we'll do them in different order. So basically, you already know from one of the previous videos or previous experience that a flat symbol looks like a sort of stylized B, lowers the sound of a note, and we call that amount a half step or a semitone, okay? And sharp looks like a pound sign, okay? Raises the pitch of a sound or note a half step or a semitone. And on a piano, a half step is a key. So if I'm here like this and I play this note C right there, but if I were to put a sharp in front of it, it would be there instead, C sharp, okay? And so this would be bum, and then with the sharp it'd be right there. Now, don't get weirded out by how this looks, because most of the time we think that sharps and flats access the black keys, and they do, but they don't have to. They just move the notes up or down. So if I had this note right there again, the C right there, and I put a flat in front of it, bum, right there. This is C, this is C flat. Now, I know we can also call it B, and you know, we could also, if you think about this, call this B sharp right there. Heck, if you want to get crazy, that note right there is B double sharp, and this would be B triple sharp and stuff. But we usually only go to double and flats and sharps when we have a specific key that we're working in. The point is that all of these notes on the keyboard and on an instrument can have more than one name. We call that enharmonic spelling. So enharmonic spelling is when a note has more than one name, and that happens like this: C sharp, D flat, F flat, and E, right? Okay. So there's two other symbols that you want to know from this table: the double flat and the double sharp. The double flat is just two flats in a row. The double sharp is an X, and the reason for that comes from, from history. What happened is when they were writing original notation and they wanted to put sharps and flats and things like that, it was pretty easy with a chiseled pen to make a flat by going like this and then like that, because it was a skinny line on one side and then the quill would be flat there, and you could just do that. So two flats would be pretty easy. That's the stroke you make. But when you're making sharps, you go like down, 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 and they say do another sharp, and they're going, no, not again. So they just said, no, I'm just gonna put an X. So we have a special symbol for sharps, two sharps, okay? There's also another symbol called natural, which looks like that, and it's on your table. I'm gonna talk about the way that sharps and flats behave in notation, and this is the part that most people don't get, and you should pay attention to even if you have a background. Now, if you've had a lot of band background, or you've had really good instrumental lessons where you've gotten into very complex, maybe modern music, you'll have seen all of these things. But let's just start right here. So treble clef and bass clef, a grand staff, and I'll put ourselves in 4/4 time, okay? If I play this note and this note and this note and this note and this note right there, those are all A's. Bum, 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 okay? But if I put a flat right there, then this becomes A flat. So A flat. Now, if you already know about reading music, you know that this is also A flat without putting anything there, because the flat carries on and affects all these notes afterwards, okay? But that's an A right there, because bar lines are like do-overs or start-overs, or let's try this again, right? So whatever happened here with accidentals, sharps and flats and things like that, gets canceled by a bar line. Now, in good notation, if you put a flat there and you've been playing with A flats and things, and then this is going to be A right here, then sometimes we put a natural sign right there with a parentheses to remind ourselves that the bar line did that. Good publishers will do that so you don't make a mistake, right? So you'll see like, boom, like that, and then the A. Okay, it's just what we call a cautionary reminder or accidental. Now, if you wanted it to be A flat, you'd have to put a new A flat right there, because bar line cancels it out. All right, cool. Now let's get a little more complicated. How do flats and sharps behave like this? So I have actually, let's put this down here so that it's, so I'm going to go D, D, D flat, D natural, okay, and then D flat again. All right, so same idea, D, D, D flat. If we don't want the next one to be D flat because that flat's going to carry through, then we put a natural in front and it cancels it. They're not cumulative, so that you don't have to keep track of what's happened before. Whatever you see at a given moment, except for the fact that this is carrying through, you just say, okay, that's it. It's natural. It's not like, for instance, if I had a double sharp right here plus a natural, that doesn't cancel one of those out. It just gives you new orders and says, now from now on, they're natural. So you don't have to go like two sharps, natural, one of them equals one sharp. That's too confusing. We don't do that in notation. It's like now they're double sharp, now they're natural, now they're flat. Okay? Good? All right, now here's a question for you. If I go like this and I put a flat there, and I'm going to write some music. Do, 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 do. And then to there. Okay. So this is D flat right here. This is D flat. This is F. This is A flat. And this is B flat. All right. So what if I have the bass clef here and it says, we'll go like this, F, and then we'll go like that, and then we'll go F again, like that. All right. This is an F, and that's a D, and that's an F. In fact, if you were paying attention in the first one, you know that these two Ds are right here off of this key, although this is a D flat. So is this a D or a D flat? Because this is a D flat, and that's a D flat, and this is, sort of equivalent right there. And the answer is, it's just D. Flats and sharps like this do not travel across staves, okay? They don't. So you don't want to be playing or singing this part right here and have to be keeping track of what's going on over here, unless it's all together as a grand staff and you're a pianist. But even then, the convention stays the same. This only affects the D flats in this staff, not here. So unless we want to put this as a flat, we have to put one right there like that. Accidentals do not cross over and affect other staves. Okay, one last thing. This is a D flat, that's a D flat. What about here? They're Ds, right? This is D flat, and this is D flat. And we said that flats carry on through the measure until the bar line. Does this mean that these are D flat as well, or are they just Ds? The answer is they're just Ds. The accidentals you put into here only affect the octave, the liner space that they're on. They don't jump across staves and they don't jump octaves. So unless we put a sign up here, this is going to be a natural, and so will that be. Now, sometimes if you're handwriting, you'll forget. Like, we probably want it to be D flat, and so they'll do that, and it will sound wrong. What they want to do is they want to stick that right there, like that. Okay? So, accidentals don't cross staves and affect notes down here. They also don't change octave in here, but they do continue through till you hit the bar line. Okay. Two more things we have to talk about. So I'm going to go back to my example here like this. All right. And I'm going to put a tie there. Ties connect the duration of this note to that note so that they go together, right? If I put a flat right there, then this is an A, and this is an A flat. But is this an A, or is it an A flat now? We've been told the bar line cancels that out, and that's true. But ostensibly, when you tie two notes together, it's the same note, just it's a way of accommodating a duration over a bar line. So in this case, this is still A flat because it's tied to that note right there. So now my next question is, what's that note right there? And the answer is, it's A flat because this one here was A flat, and it's like a virus. Once you sneak it into this section, it keeps affecting everything. Wow, do you need a break now? The nice thing about video is that if you're going like, that's just so much, pause the video and stop for a second. If we were in a lecture class, you'd just sort of have to like white knuckle it and go through it again, okay? So take a break here, and if you need to, or plow on with me, let's go through this again. If I put a flat here, it affects all the notes on the same line. They're all flat. And if we didn't want that to happen, we put a natural sign. If we wanted it sharp, we just put a sharp because they don't add together cumulatively. It's not the sum of them. They're just new orders. These are flat, and until you hear differently or you hit a bar line, they're all going to be flat. If you want it to be sharp after that, you put a sharp there. If you want it to be natural after that, you put a natural there. Sharps and flats like this do not affect other staves, and they do not affect other octaves, right? You have to mark those separately. Finally, if you tie over a flat note or sharp note into the next measure, that note that it's tied to, is this also flat or sharp? And so is the next one because you've snuck this in here and it's affecting the ones after that. If you're ever not clear about something, just put a cautionary accidental for the note. It's better to do that to remind your players that that's what's going on, and it's good. Okay. One last thing. What about key signatures? Key signatures are different. A key signature, like if we're in the key of F major, that's a scale with one flat, B flat. We put that B flat at the beginning of the line here to remind us that anytime you see a B flat, unless you hear, a B, unless you hear differently, it's going to be flat. So we could do this, right? And so this would be a B flat, and that would be a B flat. And key signatures are different than accidentals. They affect any octaves. So if we jump down to here, that's also a B flat. If we jump up to there, that's also a B flat because it's in the key signature, okay? It affects all the staves too. If you don't want it to be flat, then you have to counter it with another accidental. B natural, B sharp, okay? So accidentals have all those characteristics we just talked about. Key signatures are blanket statements for all notes, regardless of where they are. All right, don't worry. I'll give you some quizzes to help you with that. But we want to make sure you understood that, okay?